I think Dan should go first because he's awesome.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dan Milano. I'm the co-creator and co-executive producer of Glitch Text, and I also play Bit.
And my name is Eric Robles, and I am super excited to be here. I am the co-creator with Dan Milano, and we make cartoons.
I'm Ian Graham, supervising producer, Glitch Text, and I worked on a bunch of Nickelodeon shows over the years, including Invader Zim, which are The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra. As a whole, the supervising producer is kind of like the highest level director on the show. You're overseeing the teams, you're assembling the teams, you pick storyboard artists, and put the together, animatic and so on. It seems like that's kind of like the main thing. They just focus on storytelling, directing, filmmaking, things like that. So we had a lot of really interesting. We had an interesting time putting the whole team together. In fact, in this particular case, we reached out and even had more to do with the normal. Normally, you just put a team together here. We're located in LA, so we just put our team together here, and I hire storyboard artists that I either know or work with or have good reputations and what have you. But in this particular case, we went as far as helping handpick animators, everyone from like Benedetta to, it was just a ton of Carlo, you name it. Like, so I was out there asking people all over the planet trying to put this team together. So we just
I'm Andrea Gulli. Nice to meet you all. Nice to see all these beautiful people. And I was an animator on the show in Studio Sound, Studio 100 in Paris. And I had a great time. So, yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steed Haden. I have worked on cartoon animation for more than 10 years. I worked on a Glitch Text series as a Harmony technical director and a 2D animator. My job as a technical director was to make the link between the artistic and the technical, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Jérémy. I'm an animator too at Studio 100, and it was really a pleasure to animate this show. It was so fun.
Hi, I'm Paolo Antonio Garcia Quiñones. I was a 2D animator on Glitch Text at Studio 100 and briefly at Flying Bark. Thank you for having me. Woo!
What they were doing at you produced it, was they were really smart in the way that they're using Flash animation for a lot of the talking heads and basic walk, and then they would go all out with the animation on a lot of the action. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I was just impressed on how well the action scenes were put together, how smart of a production it was to combine these two things, so that way you can save money on a lot of the talking head things, and then you really have these action scenes. So when we started production, I remember talking to Dan about the studio, and then when we brought it in, I showed this walkthrough series to Ian, and he immediately grasped onto it, and he was kind of excited at the idea of putting a production together with this kind of high-end.
Originally did a short animatic, about 11 minutes long, for a potential pilot presentation that helped us sell the show to the network. Choice shots were selected from that to create a little sequence that would show off things like character interaction and then dynamic action. So when you watch this test in a few moments, you'll see that there's physicality between the lead characters, there's testing them against a background, and then we do specific kinds of action. So it feels like a trailer, but really with every shot, it's, you know, a chance to take baby steps for the first time and test the rigs and the mix of rigs and hand drawn, which we'll talk about further. So it's really just a big experiment to see if everything's coming together.
What's this do? Boop. What's that do? Boop. Oh, what's back here? Ooh, a hammer.
What do you mean she didn't reset? Everybody resets, everybody!
Maybe I'm like the one. Chosen by destiny to be the most epic level glitchy tech ever! Ow!
You? Glitch tech, without training or verification.
My crazy gamer skills is my verification.
Couple months later, we were still looking for videos, and Akuma, like all artists, whether you're a storyboard artist, even if you spend a lot of time like myself, like I've spent many years in Nickelodeon, but you're kind of a nomad. You move from one show to the next, and it's from one studio to the next. And at the time, Akuma had actually had a slowdown, where there were a lot of people were either laid off or needed to go look for other work. And when I got wind of that, I was like, oh, I got to grab some of these animators that are talented. And Benedetta was one of the people that reached out to. And we were able to, her and a handful of other people to join us. We weren't sure exactly what studio we were going to end up with. We had talked to Flying Bark, who was already, around that time, was already starting to do our two of our episodes. It's our second and third episode. And we also were talking to Studio 100 Animation in France, because they're a sister studio to Flying Bark. And they were like, they were one of the Flying Bark kind of set the tone of the look a little bit. And then P100 came in and they started doing amazing stuff. We were able to handpick a lot of the animators who had been working at Akuma, and even some of them, I believe, went back to Akuma after this was over, once they got finished with glitch techs. But it was a lot of fun to assemble the crew. I know that when I went over there for the first time, and when they started, when Studio 100 was up and rolling and in a really good place, that I went over there and they made fun of me. They said that I'm like a kind of producer who treated French animators like Pokemon, and I was collecting them from all over the place. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, it's a great team, and we just got really lucky to be able to assemble such talent from all over the world, really.
Basically, once the crew saw that test, everyone who wasn't, already locked into the show was doubled down, tripled down on their involvement. We began attracting more talent to the show. Nickelodeon was exploring the possibility of using 3D or aspects of Unreal Engine. not just for our show, but they were exploring it in general, and they were kind of using our show to look at it. And there was a lot of fear that we were suddenly going to switch over to a 3D pipeline, but we never stopped fighting for this being a 2D show, and that test made it a very easy thing for everyone to see.
I think early on they had talked about potentially doing glitch text in different ways, but we kind of stumbled across, I think it was because Ankama did Flash, we kind of stumbled across Harmony, mainly because at the time Flying Bark Studio was doing Harmony, but they were doing it in a way that I hadn't seen before. Like a traditionally, you see in Harmony a lot of rigging, a lot of puppets, because that allows for that kind of control. It saves money, and a lot of people like to go that way. But what we learned from both Flying Bark and Studio 100 was the fact that there could be so much hand-drawn. There was a lot of hand-drawn animation mixed in. They would use rigged pieces, not all rigs, and it helped. The rig pieces helped with some consistency, but overall, hand-drawn just makes such a big difference. It really makes fluid animation. It really makes it such a nice thing, and I think it's a thing that is overlooked too often in Harmony. You really can just draw on the program, and I believe that that's a huge asset to the program. And with what's going on with hopefully glitch text and shows like even Rise, Mutant Ninja Turtles, like these are shows that are like kind of pushing the envelope of what Harmony can do, and I think it's something that other studios out there should be paying very close attention to.
I was excited to experiment in this hybrid. Again, just get the strength of the animation in those action sequences was something that we really wanted to put a lot of effort. And as a designer myself, I was just looking forward to keeping the characters appealing, and I think that this hybrid allowed us to do is to keep the appeal of the characters so that they weren't constantly off model, because I can't even imagine the amount of retakes we would have if the characters were done, or if the series was done all traditional. I think we would have had a lot more retakes.
Definitely hope to see it utilized more. I know for a long time it took the animation industry a while to wrap their heads around Flash, and now I think this is something new they need to wrap their heads around. But I'm a fan of live action special effects, and I remember when they were doing the first Jurassic Park film, they sort of blended stop motion with CG for the first time, and it was like a step that industry needed to make in order to understand, how they could begin utilizing CG. And I think the same is true here with understanding how you can use the best of both worlds. You can do traditional animation, but you can help with the rigs. I think that this will start to unlock for a lot of people, especially considering the quality that you get as a result.
Yeah, and also I also to add to what Dan's saying is that because it's an action show, I think a lot of people are timid to jump into this arena and this hybrid, because most people think that if you're going to do an action show, it all has to be done without the hybrid, right? But this show, I think, proves that you can really combine the two and be successful. And again, I don't think we were pioneering this. Like I said, I was by what Ankama was doing with Wakfu, and I think that really kind of sparked the idea for Ian and myself to try to put something like that.
So yeah, one thing I can say is that the animatic was already pretty much animated. So I had some work, but most of the cut was already there, in fact. So really my job was to like take the characters and make them a little bit on model. There was a lot of key poses, and from there I just like focused on the rhythm of the of the hits. So it was not too boring, too even between the hits, and like just added a little animation here and there.
Is it typical to have animatics that are this detailed?
Yeah, not at all. I'm a storyboarder too, so I'm asked more and more to animate my storyboards, but animation on this level, only on the storyboards, I never saw before and and since.
It's interesting. Could you guys, as animators, talk about, because I know in the beginning this was a struggle for everybody. In Europe as a whole, where Studio 100 is located, obviously, it's Harmony is not as well known. I mean, most of the animators work in TV Paint, more traditional, and I know that in the beginning, just getting comfortable with the software took a minute. Could you guys talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for myself, it was really the first time I ever animated on the software. I can't speak for everyone, but I think most of the team were not really used to the software. I myself learned it like pretty much on the fly. Like I tried to like I animate some just like a thing, a cut or two just for myself week before, and then I learned the software on the show pretty much. And as you know, on the production, at first we used a lot of puppets, and then most of the animation were done like on paper, like by hand. And I think the period when we had to choose like between puppets or rough animation, most of us were a little like lost on which technique to use. And when we started to use more and more rough animation, it was easier to like to animate faster. And
for me, well, I used it before, like before starting with Studio 100, so I kind of knew already a little bit how to use it. But it's true that one thing is using Toonboom with rigs, and another thing is using it traditionally. And so I think that was the main thing in Studio 100. I think many people were very used to animate traditionally, frame by frame, and not many were used to animate with rigs, and that was the difficulty, I think, at the beginning. But I think at the end, when we, so that's why also what we talked about at the beginning, like the first episode took a long time to be made. Actually, when I started, I just started at the end, by the end of episode 1, and they were like, oh my god, we took like 6 months or something to do the animation on only one episode. But later on we went a lot quicker, also because the production scheme kind of changed and everything. But I feel like it's a bit complicated, I think, at the beginning to understand how to use rigs, especially if it's complicated rigs.
It's a huge learning curve, I'm sure, adopting any new technology, especially when there's no existing pipeline to clean
or a brand new production like this. So it was, everything on territory for us. It was a new, place to go. But it was very experimental. And, again, and I just go back to the original, executives that we had at Nickelodeon. They were very open to exploring something, a new pipeline. And even though we did experiment with other studios and they were asking if we would be interested in CG animation, I know we had our hearts set on doing a traditional animated show that had this kind of hybrid look to it. But because they were so open to it, I think, it allowed us to keep experimenting and pushing. It allowed us to build this amazing team of animators overseas to put this project together.
I know that removing the details on the knee pads was really important to everybody. Yeah, they were like, everyone was going, "This is killing us."
Well, it's such an ambitious show, no matter how you slice it. And part of the learning curve is how to create the smoothest process for everyone. Sometimes that means just adjusting our pipeline and our organization, but a lot of times it also means, creative compromise in the spirit of understanding, like what is a responsible amount of detail that can be executed, and little things like that may surprise some people. The idea that he just has extra marks on his knee pads may not seem like a big deal on the page, but that's more specifics that need to be tracked in every position. And for someone, it is a tremendous amount of work. So I think trying to understand from the writers all the way up through, design and boards, we want everybody to unlock their imagination and explore and not feel too held back. But at some point, we also need to have enough responsibility to know when it leaves our hands, it goes to someone else who needs to do their job.
As an aside, I worked at Ankama for it was my first job, season 1 of Watu. And glitch text at Theo 100 was super fun because I think it was like a good maybe 1/3 of the team had already knew each other, so we already had like this kind of like rapport and knew how each other worked. And it was great.
It's always the talent that we look for, and so because we had Ankama and get them, we were able to grab the team, and the team from the Walker series, we started building and putting together at Studio 100. And luckily, everybody was game to join us, be a part of this.
It's pretty important to try to build a strong team. I mean, the team is everything. It's like those are the people putting in their heart and soul, whether it starts at the writing stage or when you get to like storyboards. The team is everything, and that goes all the way through animation and even post-production, like, sound design and sound effects and music. It really is the team, and trying to find one of the best things about glitch text for us through, I think, and I believe that this is for crew both here and other countries at the other studios that we used, is that we really tried to create an environment of people who really cared and really wanted to bring their best to it, and given the opportunity to do that. It's a tough process to find those people, in the beginning, but once you do, and once you've got these great teams worked out, the rewards are just so huge.